Hi guys, it stays again. Actually no, that's not me, that's Dakar. Dakar's our Chief Happiness Officer, and he's come up with me to climb the hill to get our lovely view again over the Alps and the Rhone Valley. Here we go, how's that? So, sorry, I just got a very well trained. But today's a special day. Not only have I had my first haircut in about 3.5 months, starting to feel human again, but Dakar, our Chief Happiness Officer, has just turned 10. So today is his birthday. So we've been out celebrating, got a bit of a swim in the Rhone River earlier, a good walk through the forest, our favourite little enchanted forest. So all of the good things we can get now that we're coming out of the confinement. Here in France, as many of you know, things are starting to come back to normal. Went down to the haircut, took my obligatory mask, although was asked to take it off so they could do my haircut. So that's sort of going to be a little bit of the new. The new normal is going to be masks on, masks, different arrangements. As I said the other week, I got a warning from the police when I was downtown in Chambéry for not having the correct mask. Now, debating that with a range of people we've been meeting and talking with as the summer kicks into the Northern Hemisphere and long weekends of summer weather is starting to get us out and about. We've been attending some barbecues and meeting with people, and they were saying, well, that's a bit strange, you know. Even in France there is no right and wrong with the masks, but it's sort of more a message that even the authorities, even these 6 police I end up chatting with for a while, even they didn't know what the correct rules were. We were burning our pieces of paper the other day, the documents that we had to travel with for the last couple of months. We're throwing them into the fire at one of these barbecues as a celebratory measure. And one of the ladies said, oh, you've got a handwritten one, why didn't you just print it out? I said, well, we don't have a printer. We're nomads, we travel, and we don't usually travel with a printer. We haven't been able to get to our co-working spaces. Oh, she said, why don't you just carry it on your phones? I said, well, it's not permitted. I said, everybody does it. I said, well, again, it's not permitted according to the French government website. And she said, oh, no, everybody did, that's all okay. Now, another just small example of how the rules and regs are not quite sure. So today's update is about the last week or so, about how things are or aren't changing. We've got more argy-bargy here in Europe between the countries about opening borders. The Spanish, the Portuguese, the Italians, the Germans, the French are all very keen, at least those countries, very keen to get their borders open. Tourism is such a major event here in Europe. As you know, France is the single largest country with international visitors every year. Second largest by a very small margin is Spain. So about 1/3 of the world's tourism occurs in Europe. And that means there's a hell of a lot of the population here that makes their money and their livelihood on tourism. Now, we've been seeing in the last week and a half, since the severe restrictions have stopped, that tourism has kicked off. There's been a range of driving tourism occurring really nicely. I was just talking to our gîte owner. He's got 5 more bookings coming in next week, which is just fantastic news. All arriving by car. Planes are still not flying. And here in France we have a 100-kilometre limit, and as it turns out we are just under 100 kilometres from Lyon, and so the city of Lyon, largely big concrete jungle, people have been stuck there for a couple of months. They're having these revenge tourism outings, these revenge holidays. So so this is kicking on, and we're expecting, the way it's going, we're expecting more of this road-based travel to be the norm. The United States just had the Memorial Weekend, huge numbers of driving tourism over there. All social distancing, but the safety of being in your own car, getting out to going into a safe hotel room, apartment, gîte, B&B, whatever it is that you're staying at, and being confined in your own space away from others that you don't know, the new norm. The argy-bargy, the politics is still pretty messy. Here in Europe, again, Montenegro, a little country over in the Balkans, has just been declared coronavirus free. They're opening up their borders, although their nearest neighbour, Serbia, has not letting its people move into Montenegro, because Montenegro is still doing some checking of Serbs. So again, it's a political decision that's getting in the way of transport. Nearby Bulgaria has started opening up. Bulgaria is one of our favourite, as you know. We've spent a few months over there recently. They're opened up for people that live there and natives of Bulgaria. But the tourists, still not yet. Spain, heading to open their doors, the borders to both France and Portugal, at least. Maybe the flights from the UK and Ireland opening up probably mid-June if they can't get it open. Italy will be opening its borders in a few days. Oh, by the way, Italy's just behind me. It's about 20 kilometres as the crow flies. So there might be a chance that we can grab a car and head over to Italy and start exploring again. You know, just all the good things that nomads and explorers do as they get out and discover some new places. I was having a live feed earlier this week from an acquaintance in one of the startup groups. He was catching the train from, what's it called, the Eurail or something, not the Euro, Eurostar from Paris back to London, and he was giving us a live commentary on a private Telegram group, WhatsApp group, that about his journey. Not many automated passport control, facial recognition, no documents to show, almost no people, no scanning. Jumped onto a train, not many people on the train, lovely trip back to the UK, same sort of thing in the UK, very little engagement. But we've been hearing the UK is about to bring in mandatory 14-day quarantine for all visitors. When and how it occurs, we don't know, but right now it's not there. So the message is that it's not going to necessarily be a clear-cut world for another few months, maybe even another year. So there's going to be holes in these border regulations as the laws and things are being changed on the fly, maybe with a bit of political influence. So there's going to be opportunities that arise and disappear very quickly for travelling across borders. As we've seen, most of the countries have been very lenient on tourists that are in the country on tourist visas. They've been extending them. We've had the pleasure of being able to stay in France. I have a residency. My co-founder Linda just got 6 months extended visa while they process her long stay visa application. So quite lenient, and we've been hearing the same things in Germany and Austria and other countries. And we're expecting that countries are going to rely quite a lot on their tourism industry getting going again. A lot of money being pumped back into tourism. We're seeing that a lot back in my home country of Australia, where the domestic tourism is going to keep the regions going if they can get it moving. Right now in Australia, still a lot of argy-bargy over the state border opening or closing or remaining closed. Looks like being messy and still, guess what, politic for some time. And you might find it opens for a while and then closes again as some politicians get their knickers in a twist and something happens. So it's going to take a while for this thing to calm down. The fear, the concern, the unknown is driving a lot of irrational decisions at the moment, and we're getting that at all walks of life. Luckily, in many countries of the world, the infection rate has been coming down quite a lot. The hospital's been coping very well, although the US is still hit very hard. Brazil looks like coping it really bad right now. As much as I love Brazil, it's one of my favourite countries. I don't think I'll be visiting anytime soon. Russia's another one that's sort of struggling a bit at the moment. with very large numbers of infections spreading. All countries, both countries, Russia and Brazil, are very social countries. You know, it's very unusual not to be kissing people, slapping them on the back, and it's a high touch society. Even here in France, we're finding the locals, you know, naturally they want to go and give you a welcome kiss or something like that, and it's, oh, actually, no, I can't do that. So the elbow bump with clothed elbows has come back in. We've been noticing over this last 4-day weekend that we've had in France. What's that mean in the long run? In the long run it will settle down. In the medium term, if you need to be jumping onto crossing borders, look for those opportunities to jump over and keep your records. Keep photocopies, get printouts of the newspaper articles that you're seeing, of the government websites, just so you've got something to defend yourself to a border officer who may not have received the official word yet. So again, same as last week, be prepared, be polite, crossing the borders, but grab these opportunities to get out and go exploring. Because the world's starting to need you to open up. I've seen rates of hotels in Australia. You know, the rates in Sydney, one of the busiest, highest priced hotel markets in the world. They've halved over the last couple of months, and up the road there, about 1,000 clicks in Brisbane, the rates are down to $22 a night in downtown, you know, 4-star hotels. Absolutely rock bottom. So there's some brilliant deals out there if you can get out there and do some travelling and to explore. Restaurants starting to open up again, limited quantities. Oh yes, we've got some neighbouring dogs. Yes, Dakar's getting a little bit excited with the neighbours' dogs. Restaurants opening, takeaway. It's been solid for a while. Popped in and spoke to a local Turkish takeaway earlier today, and you know, had a nice little range of orders to be fulfilled before he could handle mine this afternoon. You know, so things are starting to kick back in. One of the unknown features is still what's going to happen with accommodation. And again, it's probably not as logical as you might think. We're expecting that a range of properties will remain closed for a number of months. For them, this is the lowest cost option to get over until there is sufficient demand for them to have another grand opening and off they go. However, we're also seeing on the other side government subsidies, government support to keeping businesses running, sort of trickle money flowing into these businesses. So you might find businesses and like the hotels and apartments and things like this remain open, but they're not really open. They're officially open because that's the way they are getting their subsidy from the government, but they're not really interested in guests. There's still a little bit of fear, and they may not have their complete workforce ready to be able to cater for you. So, you know, again, springtime, summertime, grass is growing, hedges need trimming. Those people haven't been working for a while, and they might have a backlog. You know, it took me 2 weeks to get a haircut, even after the, or nearly 2 weeks, even after the restrictions disappeared here in France, because there was all of a sudden there was a surge on the haircuts, the barbers, all of those suppliers of that. You'd be the same sort of thing there in gardening, I would expect. So you might find you're rejected from bookings even though you're placing it in your usual way. Luckily, we're seeing a lot of our properties really eager to get people. The rates are changing quite a lot at the moment. We've got a couple of lovely new ones in Montenegro, completely virus-free by the reports from the government. And the summertime, beautiful beaches and bays, one of the outstanding hidden places in Europe, and not too expensive. So Montenegro might be one that you might want to try and check out if you're in Europe for the summer season. We're also seeing some great stuff happening down in Portugal, which has opened up for internal travel. And we know both Portugal and Spain have large numbers of nomads who are beginning to be permitted to travel in many instances. Not wholesale yet, Some of these cities are still very locked down with some serious restrictions. But there's still a large number of people there that have the ability to travel and go explore within a country, and hopefully within the next 2.5 weeks we'll see a range of the European borders shut, the restrictions disappear and the borders open up. So still looking quite good. Quarantine still being debated quite heavily. Ireland still has quarantine. No quarantine if you're coming from Ireland into the UK. Okay, but coming in from somewhere else at this stage, the UK has got 14-day mandatory quarantine. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep you posted on what's happening. The other interesting thing is where do you go when you move countries? Well, co-working spaces is the obvious place where you're going to meet other nomads and meet some of the locals, get a bit more social activities. And we're seeing some of the co-working spaces really kick in with a whole lot of new appropriate events and activities really nicely at the moment. We're seeing reports out of the great tech startup places like San Francisco and Los Angeles, Colorado, Austin. We're seeing an exodus actually away from those centres. One, they're very expensive these days. It's been quite a big tech boom for the last year or so in the tech industries, the tech sectors of the United States, and places like San Francisco have been very, very expensive. But now business is being used to being done online, and so what was effectively the rule before, that you had to be in town to meet people, well, that's changed so much in the last couple of months. And so there's been quite an exodus occurring, according to some of the newspaper reports, of startups heading to lower cost places. One of my business partners is over in North Carolina, and he's certainly seeing North Carolina being a recipient of some pretty good startup activities at the moment. So don't be surprised to see that some of your groups won't necessarily be in London, Paris, Barcelona. They might be in lesser known areas of the world, which is also exciting. We've got some new events starting to kick on. As you know, the last couple of months has been very much online events, but personal events, personal attendance events are starting to kick in as the numbers of gatherings are permitted to increase. So some of these countries are allowing gatherings up to 500 people. So you can have quite a decent event with 500 people, an economic event. So that's very good news indeed. And again, depending on how the slowly loosening of these rules goes, we'll see those subject to virus rates and infection rates remaining low. We'll see those continue to grow. It's only natural, because the governments all want their people to be back working again, paying their taxes, and life getting back to normal. Airlines, you've probably seen the same reports that I have. There's been quite a number of airline failures over the last little while. Bankruptcy, Chapter 11 been filed for, I see, Thai Airways, South African Airways, a couple of really good airlines that I've flown with a number of times. See, they're gone. Flybe here in Europe, Virgin Australia is in voluntary administration there in Australia, and the US. So airlines are copping it hard, and there's been something like a $9 billion agreement between the German government and Lufthansa. Lufthansa has a low-cost subsidiary or two, and this is causing some disruption in the market. We're seeing Ryanair, for instance, which also competes with one of the Lufthansa subsidiaries, Ryanair out of Ireland, not getting a subsidy from their government, certainly not $9 billion, 9 billion euros worth. And so there's, again, we're heading back into politics, and one country's getting it, one country's not. And within the EU, that's a bit difficult, and so there's a lot of threats about court cases going on where maybe Ryanair will sue the EU or sue Lufthansa because of this subsidy that Lufthansa's getting to keep them alive. What does that mean? Well, apart from reading news, it may mean that one minute they're flying at cheap prices, next minute they're not. They're shut down with some sort of court order. So be ready for last minute changes. BlaBlaCar, one of the fabulous startups, unicorns here in France, BlaBlaCar is starting to diversify into scooters and mopeds and things like that. So again, remaining true to their core, which is a transport company, but while there's still a level of concern about jumping into somebody else's car and travelling hundreds of kilometres, so BlaBlaCar, for those that are not used to it, is sort of like a long distance Uber. So if you want to go for a couple of hours between a couple of towns for a day, you pay for your seat in one of these people's cars, and they put it out there, and it's very, very popular. You get almost right around Europe in this, and certainly a lot cheaper than catching trains. Maybe not as cheap as planes, but certainly regional areas which are not very well serviced by planes. BlaBlaCar has been fantastic. Buses still going to be relatively constrained for a while. If they're only allowed to sell every second seat to keep social distancing, the economics are going to hurt them. It's not like suddenly they don't have to pay road tax, or the price of diesel or the taxes have come down on that. No, the costs of overhead are still quite high, and it changes the dynamics of something as fixed in its capabilities as a 52-seater bus. Trains are a little bit different. They typically tend to be state-run, and so there's a level of support to keep everybody moving and at least getting to work. So the train systems are heading back to quite normal. We're seeing a return here in France to normal, whatever normal trains in France are. Anybody that follows this knows that it's quite an interesting environment where there's strikes that get called all the time, but they're starting to head back to normal, even here in France. So trains, great, can be a bit expensive. BlaBlaCar starting to diversify because their supply of cars is quite limited at the moment. Planes, from the 1st of June, there's certainly tickets being sold between major cities here in Europe. So all good news. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about your own country, send us a note, ping us your thoughts and your comments. If you're a property that's looking to expand your market into the digital markets, let us know. We'll see if you've got the right sort of thing to get yourself listed. We'll also have some private discussion groups for our property owners to help them keep their money going, keep their profitability, and keep their sanity during these very uncertain times. So please reach out if we can help. We'll extend the offer as much as we can. And as we get travelling again, we're certainly waited with bated breath. We've got a couple of countries, so I spoke about last week, that we're eager to get to. We're still looking for those borders to be opened up for road travel. But as your borders open up, as your visas change, let us know, and we'll keep everybody updated. So from myself and my Chief Happiness Officer, happy birthday Dakar, we'll say goodbye for now. Cheers.